Fight master. Drake. Yeah, just take a look at the notes that I took for the summit. Day 4, it's like 5 sentences, and then just an outline of like the segments that we talked about. And day 5 is literally nothing. No, I think that was day 3. Yeah, that was. That was day 3. We talked about it. Day 4 was on here, day 2. What? Oh, I thought that was like. I thought that was like the album. I thought they posted it. Man. It was such a thing. It was. I have so many. It makes me feel better. I don't see you. Wait, Liz, before we go live, why didn't you do that? You might NDA yourself. All good.
Mission fucking accomplished. Goon Swarm is not a threat.
Good luck with your all's dumb nullsec war snuffed out #1. Anunnaki Keepstar is next, and then come on.
There, then you were just going to fucking magically jump into EVE Online in a system, and it was just going to load, and nobody was going to call you fucking stupid later?
There's an Eagle fleet that has dive bombed a Megathron fleet. This is the bravest shit I have ever seen in my life.
The best possible shot to do something to the Imperium, and you fucked it up.
I talked a lot of shit over the last couple months. It's time to fucking eat some. And I showed up here to eat shit. Like,
The reason that this keeps started and get contested, and I cannot make this up, is because of tie-dye.
Guess where goons are going to live after this war is over?
Current plan is 319, I believe, right?
Hell.
Hi,
sick.
I can
People
tell you very
overreacting.
clearly, our Diplos didn't even fucking care. So, like,
White daddy.
Seamless as ever, another seamless episode of Untethered for everybody out there to enjoy. As you can see on the cameras today, we have a couple of guests with us, 2 CSM members, one of whom a number of you may not have seen physically through a camera before. Obviously, you know, there's Drake, but we've seen him before, so he's old hat. But we've got Mick Fightmaster with us today. He did. First of all, his nipples were visible on camera to begin with, but now they're not.
Hold up, wait, I'm going to correct the record here. I told you that I had no clothes on, and you demanded I go on camera anyway, so I was like, do you really want to go down this path? You rolled the dice, and you came up.
Oh, he stood up earlier on camera. He's wearing mildly skimpy shorts.
Yeah,
that might appear later, depending on whether he needs to get up. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, continuing.
But additionally, perhaps most importantly, we have Mick Fightmaster. Who, Mick, I don't believe that we've seen you here and since the night that you won your position on the CSM. How are you finding it?
That's right. Yeah. It's a lot of work, but it's been good. It's been good. Getting a lot of good feedback, and we've been getting a ton of changes in place, so I'm pretty happy so far. Hopefully,
excellent.
Yeah, folks are too.
Excellent. Well as well as the normal myself and Redline, which is boring at this stage, we do also have show regular and also CSM member Luke with us, who, because he's now showing his webcam rather than having something blocking it, has ruined my intro saying, and there he is, showing absolutely nothing on camera. But there we go. So we have two of us here who are clueless as to what your experiences at the summit were like, and we have 3 of you here who can tell us all about that. So it's been a couple of weeks since you came back from the summit. And I assume that, you're all smiles when you join cameras today, so I assume that you've saved EVE Online, and that by FanFest, everything that we've ever wanted is going to be in place.
Assuming CSP do everything we've said, we've saved EVE Online. Let's put that qualifier in there. but then I have to apologise on behalf of the entire CSM. I then infected the entire office with COVID. So as a parting gift for all their for flying us out there and putting up with us. I gave everyone COVID, so
Yeah.
It's now referred to as Drake COVID.
yeah, or typhoid flea tissue. It was extremely funny. Every time I started coughing, Kenneth would immediately put his hand over his mouth and nose, and then run out of the meeting room.
Did
Wow.
you get infected?
I don't think he did actually. So it was
He
a
did
good
not.
strategy in hindsight.
Now we know.
The COVID decided to not make it back to America. It was really scared of entering the U.S. borders because myself, Seto, Zintage, Kenneth, like we were all chill. I think Mr. Young Puke too was the only one who fell. So he's the outlier.
Well, it's in his name. It's in his name, isn't it? He's bound to
That's
get ill with a name like that.
He did a weak immune
Thank you
system.
for that work for it. So
Well, hopefully his takes
All
on the
right.
summit weren't as weak as his immune system.
There you go.
Ever since our last show 2 weeks ago, we've obviously had two pieces of key pieces of CCP content as well. Most recently, we've had CCP telling us all about something that's incredibly not dear to my heart, which is how things look and the cosmetic style things. Boasting about their video introduction to when you get into a ship for the first time. I think it's cool. I don't think I'm particularly interested in that, but I know that what a lot of people are interested in is the director's chat.
I don't think you're the demographic though for the kind of flashy, like you can now fly the ship, right? But I will say, talking to newer players, it is something they like. It's like a little weird little win sort of thing. Now we never had that, right? We get in the ship, we go blow stuff up. But I'm kind of
Well, to some extent. I mean, all of us have had that period in our EVE lives where unlocking a new ship and the weapons to go with it, you suddenly see an extra big branch of opportunities open to you. It's like, oh, now I've trained a Mar Cruiser 5 and some pulse lasers. Now I can fly an Absolution for the first time. None of us get to have that anymore. But I guess that this is quite the enhancement to that fantastic feeling of progress that persevering new players are able to have in this game. It's something very good. But director's chat, a lot of people kind of upset at the director's chat. Would anybody else here like to kind of give an idea as to what they thought? Well, I mean, Redline, you're not on the CSM just like me. I'm going to ask you what you thought you were hoping to see in the director's chat, and I'm going to ask our CSM members here what they feel the community was wrong to expect from the director's chat.
Oh, that's incredible. So, like, from the director's chat, and also from dev blogs that would be around the time that, you're going to expect an update to a big expansion, I would have expected something to be excited about, right? Something that kind of makes me want more EVE content, you know what I mean? Like, make me beg for it, I guess. So I wanted some kind of content that was going to make me scream. That was going to make me scream, I love EVE Online! Just like that. That's what I'm looking for.
I suppose that once you're a few years into playing EVE Online, then, your content is almost entirely player-driven, though, really, isn't it?
Well, sure. Of course it is. But that's not the point.
I mean, if I come to you, Mick, the director's chat a couple of weeks ago, people kind of seemed upset. Maybe you have a different view on what the players felt about it. It seemed to me that the players seemed to me upset that they didn't announce details of a full expansion of the game. How do you feel about the players' feedback?
No. The players' feedback was that they didn't announce any details about anything at all. That was the player feedback. And they didn't announce any details about anything. They said one word, and you took it and ran with it, and they said projection. You were like, ha, they're going to fix it finally. I'm sorry, I'm going to be quiet.
Hey, listen, no. Just to clarify, I am very confident the CCP is going to have a crack at fixing it.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I think realistically, CCP has always struggled with, or rather, let me say this: they've erred more so on the side of let's not say anything, because so much of the decisions that they make and what they do is around like the hype build. Like I remember when I saw one of the big like trailers and I think it was one of the Deathless trailers from last year, and all of a sudden I see like a bunch of like drifter battleships all of a sudden like doing things in K space. I'm like, that's super exciting. Like I got so my mind just starts going all these places. Like, what's going to happen with drifters? What's going on here? And it's like an introduction of like the Deathless and stuff. The CCP, I think, really relies on that, and so director's chat was not a good place to try and expect anything exciting. I think realistically you're going to find more exciting things in like the sneak peek trailers and like all the cinematics that they release than you would in like a sit down roadmap chat,
which is sort of the opposite of what should really happen. Like a director's chat should be like, even though isn't going to go into the nitty gritty, it should be like, look, here's what this half year or year we want to do. Even if it's with the promise of like, maybe some things will get cut, but this is our vision. People asked me for like what my take was on the director's chat, because we were in meetings during the director's chat. So we had to watch it afterwards back in the hotel. And I think the directors thought they've actually said a lot of stuff because they know what they're alluding to, but the player base doesn't. And now we as the CSM know most of the details, which obviously we can't share. In that context, it looks a lot better than it is, but it's extremely fucking frustrating for the player base. And I kind of, because we were told like probably a week before the summit that this director's meeting was going to go out, and I said, is it going to be a corporate vague statement? And they were kind of like, no, not really. No, you're going to tell them stuff. And they've kind of half done that. They've not. So I like kind of expected them to go into more detail, and they haven't. So I get why the player base is pissed off. It's CCP's constant Achilles heel is communication. It's something they really need to work on. So I need to just drill it into the heads a little bit more, I guess.
I mean, obviously, if it's not, if say, an expansion is not far through development enough to be able to tell the players anything of substance, do you think that they do you think that they needed to have this anyway, in spite of not having a lot to say, or do you think they would have been able to delay it without the players starting to climb the walls and pull the cables out of the walls and stuff?
They would have been able to delay it quite easily because the players didn't know there's a directors meeting until
it was happening.
Like no, it was like the day. It was like the Monday when the day the CSM summit officially started. I think the players were told that there's going to be a summit, a directors chat on the Thursday, I believe it was. So they would have had time to delay it. I don't think they would have needed to. I think they just needed to, be a bit braver and actually show some substance behind it.
Whereas I have a slightly different, not different take. So bizarrely, before the reason I was almost late to this stream was I was on a fireside kind of AMA directors chat style thing for something else that I'm involved in, and I was actually reflecting like what was I doing there versus what did CCP do. And I think I can see a scenario where they probably wouldn't want to say too much if the ink is not dry. I think the bit that kind of irked me about the director's chat was there was a lot of kind of buzzword usage, and I'd rather have had a plain speaking chat about some of their thoughts than kind of using buzzwords that one probably don't mean much to most people, or if they do mean something to most players, they're just not going to fly because it's just marketing hyperbole, right? That was the bit that I was not a fan of. I'm reasonably comfortable with a director's chat that wouldn't have gone into super in depth, because it also, you know, introduces, you know, I think CCP Akami, I think it was the first time it was on stream, if I remember correctly. So it's also introducing some new kind of senior game directors. And it kind of humanizes the dialogue with the community, which I think is a good thing. I just think the buzz terminology just was the bit that really kind of irritated me more than anything.
It's kind of like the halfway there, because they did like, it was kind of like a fireside chat, and it was CCP Swift, Akami Burger, Ratati. They were all on the couch, and it was a more casual thing, not like an interview type thing where they have like a predefined script ish. So I think that's why when I asked like, is it going to be like a corporate thing, they said no, and I could understand that, but I think I didn't correctly convey my meaning when I asked that question.
Do you feel
there going to be
that
summit
this
minutes? A question from the chat. Do you know?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
thank God.
So
have we ever missed out on summit minutes?
Yes, we have. So I was going to say, as far as I'm aware, there is an intention to have summit minutes, and none of the CSM, as far as I'm aware, have kind of pushed back against it. The reason I'm saying intend is because CSM 18 were also happy with there being summit minutes, and they were never released. 17 was.
18 was.
So,
18 was. It was released as a forum post.
Okay, so it's not with the rest of the minute. Okay,
and
fine.
yeah, I've asked CSP to fix that.
Thank you
okay,
so
fine.
much.
Then it was just in a weird location.
See, guys, if you voted for Drake, it was a good vote. Good CSM here. Love that.
CSM minutes from summits have the vast majority of the amount of time been received as, what is the point in any of this? There's barely any meat on these bones. Do you have a message to anybody who is pissed off the back of the directors meeting, that to kind of temper their expectations as to what to expect from the summit minutes?
I think it's a good indication of what CCP are working on. It's not going to be the detail that you want it to, because most of it's going to be redacted in terms of the detail. I generally try and skirt the line on the NDA as much as I can, and I do get like slapped by CCP sometimes, which is what I've been doing with Poshvin. So I am going to push them to like, please give them a bone of stuff that is definitely going to be in the next X amount of months, and do some more detail, or even say that we will do a dev blog on this at some point. I know it's a big ask. I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I'm going to push for it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Why should people temper their expectations, Phantomite?
Because the summit minutes are usually along the lines of the CSM agreed that new players would be good for the game, right? That's what a lot of these minutes have to be, because anything further is usually censored by CCP.
I think it's time for the censoring to stop. This is the most expensive MMO on the market. We deserve to know about it. Simple as that. What are we spending our money on here?
I take a more kind of a similar but not as strong view on that. I mean, CCP will tell the CSM often, not always. They will tell the CSM about how an intended proposed feature for an expansion works. Sometimes only 2 or 3 months before the expansion actually drops. And if we are 3 or so months away from an expansion dropping, some of those details that you may feel should have been announced, like this ship's going to get a buff, blah blah blah, might get changed or dropped before the release of the expansion. And if they were going to tell us that right now, and then they were like, actually, we can't do this, loads of people would start rioting.
Yeah,
you run into a weird situation that I know CCP are conscious of, where if you have a slightly broader set of meetings, it's CCP spoke to the CSM about X subject, and then CCP bring out an expansion to tackle X subject, and between what the CSM have agreed with and what has actually been delivered are wildly different, and then it creates a disparity between, all the CSM agreed with this, and actually it was a completely different topic, but because it's only discussing broad themes, that's one of the things I'm aware they are cautious of, because it
Just feel like that was
Yeah,
a subtle
anyway.
dig at Equinox.
You take that how you wish to take that.
I will say that, vague as it was extremely encouraging during the director's chat to me to have CCP out loud, the people at the top at CCP, acknowledge out loud that they want to change projection. And that is as vague as they were.
They
However,
said the word projection, dude. And everything else
it
just
may
making
well.
it up.
You're absolutely right. It is one word and it is with no detail. I accept that that's exactly what you've got. However, notable modifications to projection would be the single biggest revolution Eve has had in a decade.
That is quite true, unfortunately.
So for them to say that, it may well be only a very few number of words, but it is hinting at a very specific portion of the game that will have massive consequences for every single player. I mean, did you want them to dress it up and turn it into a whole paragraph that still is as vague because they can't tell us exactly what they're planning to do?
So I think you misunderstand what people want, and there is a comment in the chat that kind of explains a little bit better. And the comment is, "I'd rather know potential direction of travel instead of setting on my thumb for 2 years waiting on vagary." That's it.
But
I don't
what
want
is
to know
that?
everything, right? But I want to know.
Yeah, but what does that look
more
like?
than
Give me an
just-
example of what that looks like.
Well, I think what Astro is saying as well is kind of what the director's chat did, and I know that's not the answer Astro wants because it was vague. But when they said projection, and then you're saying they could simply say they're going to tackle Antiblex. Projection is a bigger thing than Antiblex. Projection is many, many systems.
Projection is sinoing. Projection is filaments.
Yeah, for filaments, Zarzak
It's wormholes.
Zarzak was the big projection
Zarzak,
addition that
drifters,
CSM hated.
filaments, Poshvin,
Yeah.
Wormholes in general, Thera, what's the other one? The Turner, sorry.
Yeah, Turner.
So you can
we can hold on. We can take a
which
reading here.
one of those directions you are going to go. We want to tackle projection by Ansiblex.
It might be more than that.
Is Nullsec going to shake in their boots? You told Nullsec that they were going to lose Ansiblexes and some of their systems 6 months before it happened. You tell Nullsec stuff in advance anyways. So what's the risk? Where's the loss here? I don't get it.
The risk is that in game design and in any design, things can change. And even if they have every intention of doing what they've said, it might change. And the moment it changes, they will be torn limb from limb by the community.
Okay, well,
sometimes quite rightly,
but
but sometimes not.
I think that we as the community have proven that we're just going to tear them limb from limb anyways. So they might as well get torn limb from limb for something that's worth getting torn limb from limb for. You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to say.
You don't think that possibly creates a level of hesitance, though, for them to actually share anything? If the default position is always kind of fuck you, CCP,
but
you're wrong.
Here's the thing: is that it's a different group of players each time because Eve is huge, and there are so many people, doing so many different things that every time they do something good for one group, it fucks up something for another, and then that group starts screeching, and it just repeats endlessly. So they're never going to get anywhere if they don't take risks, though. And I think that taking a risk on saying, hey, we're going to tackle Ansiblex problems within the next 6 months, hopefully, I don't think that's that big of a deal. It'll just be a meme if they don't do it, just like Logi on kill mails. It's a meme.
I also can't get over how efficient Luke is at vaping. You can't even see him through the smoke anymore.
That's a blanket or a towel or something.
Well, I tell you what, listen, projection covers a large number of different methods, and one of those is wormholes. I mean, Mick, can we just get a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up if you are not scared, thumbs down if you are scared.
I am not scared.
Okay, right. So at least at this current moment, Mick, you're not feeling like wormholes are about to get shafted.
That is not what he said. He said he was not scared. If we're
That is
looking at
not
the
scary.
NDA
An easier way
listed
to-
here.
It's a long term, okay? We got until
An easier way to frame it as well is like just as a very basic description of the NDA, we cannot bring up anything that CCP brought to us. We are allowed, within reason, to tell you what we brought up to CCP, but we can't say what their reply was. So
There's nothing wrong
So-
with you sort of giving a vibe check.
yeah,
However,
yeah.
Right.
So but
Hey,
Mick
it's your
had-
NDA, pal.
Yeah, so I brought up filaments to CCP. I've been quite vocal about what I'm going to bring up and what is on my like Poshfan roadmap and the plans there. And filaments was part of that. So that's my part of the projection. A part of Poshfan also is wormholes, so I had brought that forward as well. I can't remember I don't know if Mick wants to say if he brought up anything for that, but anything that was brought up in the like the details we can't bring up, and CCP's response we can't bring up.
I think the only thing is I just provided a little bit of insight from like a wormhole dweller's perspective is all. That's all really.
fair enough.
That's kind of like my thing. You know, whenever something gets said, I'm just like, think about how this would affect wormholes, and then go into the implications behind that.
And that's what people vote. That's what your brothers voted you in for. So
Yep.
thank you. Hey, listen, Mick. While we're with you, I want to ask. You know, what does attending the summit look like? Do you get grouped with other CSM members all in one plane? Which might be a little bit risky. There's several powerful people on one plane coming out of America, but
Yeah, geez. I tell you what, that was not the week to be traveling. If you ever had a fear of
You
flying,
didn't
that
get
was
stuck in Iceland the week after because of a red warning across the entirety of Iceland.
yeah, but like planes were going down, man. Like they were going down for like freak accident stuff. It was
That's
not a
Only in
crazy
America.
shit, dude.
yeah.
They have
Um,
nameplates
It was
now.
it was literally 3 that week, wasn't it? There was
It was
Helena.
2.
it
I
was
guess
like
3 if
one
you
passenger
include
jet,
them.
right?
Yeah.
It's like one
Yeah.
like, notable passenger jet, and then a couple of small or fighter aircraft, right?
Yeah, but like a lot of people were. So there's a red warning storm hit on the day, like most of us were flying back. So I think everyone got out okay. Some were a bit delayed. Hilmar got delayed like 2 days, I believe,
From
which was
where?
really good because I'm not allowed to say that, but he's going out of the country to do something else. So,
Okay.
but
Hey, listen,
but-
most people go out of the country for personal or business reasons. It could have been anything. Carry on.
But so he got delayed. But because he got delayed, he got to meet us at there was like a thank you dinner from CCP on the Friday night, and Hilmar attended, and I ended up speaking with him for something like 6 hours, which is pretty cool. And more than once, in the hotel lobby, we would all be in the lobby with Hilmar, like speaking about stuff that he wants to do and giving him ideas until 2 a.m, which was
I think it's always
really
the
fucking
interesting
cool.
thing. Most of the real chat happens in the hotel lobby. The amount of consensus that was met in the lobby of the hotel in Reykjavik was kind of astounding.
Yeah, I also, as someone who's not interacted with Hilmar much or at all, like last FanFest, I interacted with him once. I had a shot with him in the bar, which is kind of cool. But I've never spoken to him. And as my job as an accountant in real life, I deal with people who are CEOs of companies who are directors, and they it's not that they don't give a shit about what's going on in the company, it's that they are thinking about completely different things. So I expect him to be completely detached from Eve at this point, and he wasn't. He is actually far more. What is this? What are you bringing up?
Just
But
a little
he's
bit
a
of
lot
love.
more.
That's
Yeah,
just a little bit
he's
of
a
love.
lot more knowledgeable about Eve as it is right now than I ever would have given him credit for. There's some things he didn't know about, like we spoke about multi-boxing quite a lot, and he didn't know too much about multi-boxing. He kind of wanted to understand what drives players to do like giga boxing, like in Poshfar and things like that. But he will then like make a ton of notes, and then he'll follow up and ask a million questions to like the CCP staff and like the data team. So he's definitely not someone that sits on his ass. So
that's really encouraging.
Yeah, I was really encouraged by it, and I know that he's mainly going to be focused on new products like sort of Vanguard and Frontier are the ones that people know about. Frontier is going on its public alpha this week, I think. You get like a week test, so if anyone wants to get into that, have a look.
That's the crypto thing, right?
It is, but the game behind it is genuinely amazing.
I'm
personally really skeptical. Like, I really don't like crypto.
Mm-hmm.
I even had part of my presentation to CCP, because CSM do like an up to an hour, unless it's marked and it's 2 hours, presentation to CCP, and mine was a big thing on RMT and player safety. Unfortunately, the public release of that is going to have to be entirely redacted, because simply due to the nature of the thing. But that's why I don't like crypto, because it's essentially condoning RMT, and it can get nasty really fucking fast. And it's just a ticking time bomb, I think.
I think RMT is great.
So you're going in a report to GM Stinger?
Why?
Anyone who says it just gets banned. You don't know that?
Shit.
You don't play anyway, it's fine.
Hey, I want to. That's the thing. So, like, Phantomite, you're always asking me what I want. I want a reason to play again. Like, that's where I'm at.
You need there to be action that's worthwhile joining in.
Like, I'm still here. I still run a show about this video game that I don't play. Obviously, I still care about it. But I want a good reason to get back in there and start a war. Or participate in one.
Think we're on the same page.
Maybe.
Luke's potentially starting a war soon, so maybe just go and do him.
If Luke starts a war, I will, because I'm in
I think if it's the subject I think you're referring to, it's hardly qualified as a war.
All right, okay.
It's a fly swatting exercise.
Yeah, it's fly swatting, except the flies are really racist, so...
So make sure you join the correct side, Redline.
Yeah, it sounds like I need to be pretty certain of this. Racist flies? I'm sorry, I must have missed something here.
If that was your takeaway from that conversation, you do you, Redline.
He doesn't do subtlety. That's what low sec players are like.
I mean, he's...
We're getting closer.
But hey, listen. You know, it's really encouraging to hear that even as high up in the company as Hilmar, not only is he available to you, but that he's interested so that he comes back. You know, because I know from experience that he hasn't had that level of availability in previous CSM terms, and you know, there are problems in this game that have gone on for unbelievably huge amounts of time. I mean, perhaps one of the most classic and visible problems, even just at a very small specific level, is the Munin for 7 years. I mean, 7 years is possibly two or more entire careers for a player in this game. And the game can't stand still for that long. You can't have people complete an entire MMO career without the game changing to give them something fresh. And so, you know, something that I want to ask you all is, you know, do you feel confident that there's a good chance of things being shaken up to a much more interesting degree than they have been for a long time? You know, that could encompass any number of things, you know, not just my obvious single subjects, but, you know, do you feel like you feel positive about what might happen in the future?
I actually don't know if I can answer that question. I don't think I'd be allowed to. I am going to have to bow out of that question.
That's crazy. So you can't say if you're excited or not?
I'm excited, but like, that's from my thing of what's coming for my work with like Poshfin and stuff.
But you can't say if you're excited.
Yeah, but I know. Hold on, Drake. Listen. Drake, I know that your expertise area is Pochven, but I also have known you for several years now, and I do know that you do care about the general health of the game outside of Pochven as well. You know, so I think everybody would understand if you could say that you were happy, or if you were waiting for more information as to whether you were excited about, if you were positive about the future of the rest of the game.
I'm positive. It's just in the context of shakeups.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can answer that.
Okay. All right.
Well,
I think the best way to answer that is, obviously it's like our job to provide direction and provide insight for areas that they have questions on. If CCP addresses the priorities that we've been kind of harping on, then yeah, I think the answer to the excitement question is yes. There's a reason to be excited. But the ball is entirely in CCP's court. We can only do so much, and yeah, I think that's the safe way that keeps you within NDA to answer that.
Okay. This might be. I mean, I know that you felt like you had to bow out of the last question to some extent, Drake, and this might be even harder. But I mean, could all three of you, one at a time, maybe kind of give us, if you can think back to before this term, while you were seeking election, what areas of the game, and I don't want to know if you feel it's going to get addressed or not. What areas of the game do you think did you feel needed the most attention before your term on the CSM?
I mean, I'm going to go, although it's kind of weird because I've run 2 terms before, right? So I'm going to think back to this term rather than before 17. So
before this term, yeah.
Yeah. So there are 2 primary frustrations that I have. One is Equinox and everything about Equinox, and the current inflation situation, MPI situation, all the rest of it. And we've definitely been quite vocal about that with CCP. Now, obviously, I can't say what they've said. I feel hopeful that they will listen to it, but you have to kind of leave it at that, right? Can't say what they've said.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, just want to know what you went in with.
The second part is the kind of the projection part. Like my opinion on projection is quite well known. It's not as strong line as Phantomite yours, but it's not as it's not a weak view on projection either. Obviously, it was on the topic list. That's a good thing. The fact that they put it on the topic list means there's at least a thought to discuss it, and to a degree it was brought up in the director's chat as well. So those are the 2 big bits that I raised for 19, and I'm reasonably hopeful that they are looking at it. What they do with it is the bit that leads me with a level of nervousness. See Equinox, right? Like just because CCP touches something doesn't always mean they kind of come out with a cohesive system at the end.
Which gives rise to the classic CCP monkey paw meme.
To some extent. I mean, Luke, what I might say to that is, you brought up Equinox, and it was an incredibly public, repeated changing of the feature set. Obviously, I know behind the scenes during development, it will have changed a lot because that's how you develop something. But after release, it changed repeatedly, or indeed after announcement, it changed repeatedly. Something that I hope that you will bring to them is ask them to grow some balls with their CSM-led changes in the future to things, to do better at getting it closer to correct the first time, and then to stick with it and bear it out and see how it goes, see what it grows into after that, rather than just repeatedly going back in basically immediately and swapping it around again, because that doesn't give any of the players any confidence as well. So whatever's coming.
On the projection, which is one of the topics that was in the list, I would say, without breaking NDA, that was probably our most productive meeting, bar none,
Mm-hmm.
Like, we really, like, everyone was almost essentially what we had done was
we prepared.
Yeah, we prepared hard. Like in the were there like 3 nights or something in the hotel lobby? We're like, right, this meeting is going to be hell if we don't get our shit together. So let's like hash it out. And we kind of went to CCP with a unified vision of what would be acceptable.
I hope it was unified around actually getting meaningful change done, because there are current CSM members who talk about their reasoning behind how they feel projection should be changed, specifically around Ansible X. And they express views in public now, even after the election finished, not before. They express views to this day about how it should be changed in manners that absolutely do not fix the key issues with it. So, I'm glad that you were all able to agree on at the very least, this needs changing somehow. But I really hope that you guys, and I know that all three of you have, I've spoken to all three of you a fair bit, so I know that you're some of the correct 3 guys to say this to. But I hope that you are watching out for false arguments and straight up lying about how people play the game.
Well, I think
these kind of discussions.
I think me, Phantomite, and if it was something that wouldn't actually solve the issue, I wouldn't have said what I just said.
I trust all 3 of you.
That's assuming. Obviously, that's assuming that CCP takes what we've said on board and runs with it. Like as Luke said, that's an entirely different thing.
We'll see. Yeah.
Like I'm hopeful. Like that was essentially the one. Like I was kind of fearing was may like delve into. Well, this could be that change. No, it could be this change. That's better, and it'll just not fucking go anywhere. But it wasn't. It was like, here's all the things we had. We had Sedo. He was in charge of the whiteboard. Kenneth and I were in charge of timekeeping because I was shit at timekeeping, so Kenneth stole it from me. But like we had defined topics that we wanted to go through. We had like times between the topics, and we just hashed it out in minute detail of what's the problem, why is it a problem, what is a solution that will fix the problem that we're all happy with.
What should it look like afterwards to have been a success?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And another
because the thing. Sorry, go on. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say to your point, like we have a very diverse CSM. You talk about like all the different variations of projection. It's not just Ansible X. It's Wormholes, it's Pochvin, it's Turner, and we've literally got people who are experts for all 4 of those things on the board, right? So it's very easy. Plus, of course, Ansible X and others. But like I felt like the knowledge base was very comprehensive, I think is probably the best word to use, which I think attributed to why it was a great session.
Good. Because, something about major changes to systems in EVE Online. Let's look at Equinox, right? And this is something that has repeated through EVE history, is that essentially, in terms of, how long should something be left alone for after being changed, this is the only chance it's going to get. I'm sure that, over the course of 3 months after release of whatever it looks like, there may be a few tweaks, but that's it. CCP, throughout history, has introduced brand new systems to the game. They've done a couple of tweaks, and that's all you get for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or more years. So they got to get this right the first time. Equinox feels highly abandoned now. Maybe not abandoned. It feels like there's not going to be a chance of any notable changes to Equinox mechanics. Any kind of extra follow-ups of any real note. I would expect that we would get that in... the timescale would be years rather than weeks or months for that kind of thing here. So if CCP has decided that they will do a major look at... if CCP has decided that they're going to be visiting projection across the game. This is all we've got. This is the only chance after several years of massive amounts of complaining and debating and reasoning. This is it. This is the only chance that we get. So I'm praying for you guys.
So
Praying for everyone.
I do wonder how you are right, and I think that creates its own problem and has created its own problem, which is when a change is made that goes, let's say, potentially too far in a negative direction. And I think there were some bits of that in Equinox, and there were some bits that weren't. That's probably a longer conversation.
Agreed, yeah.
Your point was, you wish CCP had some balls to stay the course. But the reason the community gets so loud about it is because they know if they don't get that loud about it, at that point, it will not get resolved and it will stay in a bad state for 3 to 4 years.
I don't think that the community being loud about something means that they're necessarily right.
I'm not saying, no, and actually, I don't think you're wrong. But I think at the same time, you have to consider, by your own words, that if you're not super loud, it doesn't get looked at. And if it doesn't get looked at immediately, it's not going to get looked at for 4 years. And if it's a terrible change, I'm not saying all the things in Equinox are terrible changes and all the rest of it. That's not what I'm saying. 4 years might be too long without change. It becomes more destructive because it's not being corrected. Now, obviously, the right way of doing it is implement a change and then actually iterate on the damn thing until it's in a good position.
Mm-hmm. I don't have hope in that anymore, though, because I've been playing for 18 years and that's never been a thing.
I'm not saying that's what CCP do. I'm saying it's just the right way in a normal development cycle to normalize something, right? You can go too harsh, and then you can dial it when you iterate, right? But I think that's where a lot of the community stress and frustration comes from, right? Because they know if they don't scream and it doesn't get changed, it's never going to get changed. And if it's really destructive, that's bad for the game overall.
I'm sure
there's a lot of people that just scream for the sake of it, but that's a different conversation.
I don't think there's any one of us who doesn't yearn for meaningful iteration on various products in the game. But I no longer feel it's worth considering promises of iteration. I do feel it's worth considering wanting the CSM to help CCP make a better product on release, so that the iteration isn't as much of a pain point anymore. That's about it. I think I guess nothing to say about it. Do you think that's a reasonable thing for me to say?
It's a reasonable thing, and CCP, in my eyes, over the past since COVID started, I guess, which is when I came back to the game, they have a sort of decision paralysis on things that, no matter what they do, half of the player base will be pissed off. Half the affected player base will be pissed off. It's kind of like with the just use Antiplex, fuck it. All the people that fucking hate Antiplex, if Antiplex got nerfed, will love it. Everyone who relies on Antiplex and doesn't like the idea of change to various extents will, for the most part, automatically hate it. So no matter what CCP does, they're always going to get a large pushback from a large amount of people. And at some point, they need to understand they just need to push back past that. And there are some things that will be unpopular with part of the player base, but if it's constantly being a stain on the game, it needs to be dealt with, because if they don't, and they're in that decision paralysis, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's harder and harder to make the change.
7 years of decision paralysis around an issue that people have described in detail again and again and again.
Yeah, one thing I brought up, in fact, before I say this, I'm just going to make sure it was a topic that was public. 1 second. just need to cross my I's and dot my T's on this.
We've got a question in chat. Where did Goons move to again? Which region was it?
Irrelevance.
Okay.
South, right?
Right.
South. The South region. There we go. That'll do.
It is a topic that's public. It was the monetization brainstorm topic. I brought up this was to the monetization team, and obviously I can't say what their reply was. I said you're in a position where you have increased the subscription price to $20, but all the veteran players are essentially subbing for as little as $6 because they understand how the sales work and how it's then if they wait a few months they'll get the deal on the NES, and essentially through delayed
And they're buying bigger blocks as well.
Yeah, and they're buying huge blocks, but they are paying basically the cheapest amount for an MMO, but the game is being marketed as the most expensive MMO because of that 1 month sub is so fucking high, and that's the first thing that new players see, and it's a massive barrier for them to say, well, why should I sub if Plex price is really fucking high? People say I can crab to get Plex, but it's becoming more and more untenable for them, or $20, which is more expensive than any other MMO. So I've said to them, like, this is almost kind of backwards.
I do wonder if CCP is scared that by lowering the sub, it will look like they're desperate.
They are.
They're not.
Okay.
Eve does okay.
Yeah, Eve definitely does okay. Eve
does okay.
Yeah, Eve has had its best. Well,
they're not in financial crisis mode over people not wanting to play their game.
That's
not wanting to pay to play the game.
That's different than being desperate, isn't it?
It's not like it's Dauntless. Rip Dauntless. And Rip Phoenix Lives. But Eve Online is, as far as the making money is concerned, has been great. We've just had the Pearl Abyss quarterly earnings report, and Oz has done a breakdown of that. And annoyingly, they've removed all the breakdown by IP.
Yeah, as I said, they've changed it.
Yeah, they've changed it. I suspect the reason they changed it is because Black Desert Online is really not doing well, but that's just my perspective. But I'm fairly sure that Eve has done really fucking well. But I kind of don't like how it's gotten there, because CCP is very much, we've all seen it now, CCP is very much going down like the capitalizing on FOMO sales. Like, get the 20% off Plex now. And then as soon as that happens, they immediately have an NES sale, like for 1 week only. And it's very much in my eyes, they've taken it from the school of thought of like mobile games, because mobile games are really fucking effective at making money. But they're really fucking effective at pissing off your player base.
They saw how effective Echoes was at bringing players in and then keeping them for long enough to spend a little bit of money. And then sure, they only play for a few months, but they've already spent like $100.
Yeah, but the problem, I mean, it's an approach, but it's a self-destructive approach, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of listen to the whole Eve Forever, like, PR, propaganda, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, if you cannibalize and just kind of shell and then kick out, which is what the mobile world does, right? They want some attention for a month. They want to kind of rinse you for some cash and then throw you back out again. That works in a mobile game. It's not going to build a player
doesn't
base
work in
Eve.
MMOs.
It's
Yeah.
the wrong type of game.
And we can see that playing out in Serenity and Infinity on Eve China. No one fucking plays it. It's got like 2,000 active players. That it didn't help that they split Serenity and Infinity, so they split their own player base, which was moronic.
Yeah, they massively cannibalized the player base.
But they've done FOMO sales. They've got gacha in there. They've got essentially pay to win mechanics, because you can just straight up buy Alliance tournament ships by, if you do enough gacha, you'll get the pity thing, and you can get a token, and you get to choose a Victor or a Raiju or a Laylaps.
They're asking people to play it as a different kind of game to the kind of game that makes Eve actually thrive.
Yeah, but it is a different game, right? Like the buying the AT ship sort of thing. They don't have the AT, so it's not you're buying an AT ship. It's you're buying a limited.
They do have they do have the AT, but they
don't have a formal AT per se.
They have an AT, but they don't get AT ships as prizes. It's really weird. It's really weird.
Right. So they don't have AT ships, right? They have limited edition ships.
I don't know why they did that. I think maybe they started selling the AT ships before they did their AT, and maybe they can't go back on that.
I don't know. I know I can buy a Golden Magnate.
Really? What the fuck?
Yeah, they sell Golden Magnates on Serenity. That's the thing.
That's so stupid.
It's
a different culture.
different, right?
I mean, they have a very Chinese players have a very different culture as to how they approach competitive games, though, don't they? I don't mean from the point of view of they want to pay to win. I mean, you know, it did change since then, but one of the examples is that 12, 13 years or so ago, two major alliances on Serenity had massive super capital brawls where as soon as a Titan hit structure, they stopped shooting it and it just honor bowed out of the fight. Right? That's a very, very different mindset to how everybody in the rest of the world is approaching EVE Online.
I hope you take some lessons from that if my Python is ever tackled. or if I'm on an Iceland Air flight and I disconnect.
As I said, after you made me ill, if I ever find a scenario where your Python is caught, it is dying. And you deserve it. Because actually I felt rough for 24 hours and then I was fine. But my fiance, yeah, she got really ill. So she will come and help me kill your Python.
Okay, sorry, Mrs. Luke.
She's fine. It's all fine now. But
they've got a plan now, Drake.
She gets hit with COVID a lot harder than I do. COVID kind of is just a bit of an irritant, and then it goes away for me.
Yeah.
So I was just reading the comment about Serenity.
Yeah. Astro also said we skipped over a CCP receptive to concerns around MPI. We discussed the economy and MPI a lot, and the fact that Equinox's mineral distribution is dog shit is a good technical term. It's pretty dog shit. Like the fact that there's no Noxium to get Morphite. The most consistent source of Morphite at the moment is either Podfin or reprocessing guns that you find. Which is bad which is why we're having this Morphite crisis. And it's not really a Morphite crisis. Like Morphite is the most expensive mineral, but it's not gone up percentage-wise as much as Mexilon and Pyrite. Pyrite's really fucking bad at the moment. And those were kind of... CCP has done something about the isogen problem, because the isogen problem was really bad, and that has gotten under control. But a result of that getting under control is it goes to the next limiters, which was Morphite, Mexilon, Pyrite. Mainly Pyrite and Morphite. And they've just skyrocketed. So we've definitely had a lot of conversation about that. In terms of receptive, I would say CCP receptive to everything we've said, but I can't go anything past that because that goes on the NDA.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, that's any kind of talk about how you guys would feel about CCP's feeling, even just their feelings, not even their direction about the MPI would be highly top secret.
Yeah, and it's also a bit of a weird one because the MPI doesn't show the full thing because the MPI doesn't include Moongoo, and Moongoo has crashed through the floor. So even though the MPI was it last month or the month before where the MPI was literally off the graph because it didn't scale properly, but like ship and is it primary producer indexes like ships and modules hadn't gone up that much, and that's simply just because Moongoo is so low. So
there you go. Luke's taking a look right now at the CCP's exact plans for minerals, and he'll unsensor his camera when he's put that piece of paper down. Yeah.
I also just realised on stream I'm called Drake COVID, and fuck you.
Your own fault, isn't it?
All right. So we talked about the edges of what you can't talk about. We talked about your experiences being there, and I'm really glad to hear about your access and the interest from CCP, because that's the kind of thing that's going to sort of get a lot of people to be a bit more restful about this kind of thing.
Nick, do you want to take this one before I do? Because I'm very biased on this.
No, you go for it.
I was going to say, because what the question you asked before, which you kind of like strayed from, was like, what did you expect before the CSM, and what have you actually gotten so far?
I don't think I asked that.
He did, because he went into Luke. Luke was the first one.
It was what
well, that's like
what did you want
before
to achieve going into the CSM verse?
Yeah, yes, yeah. And we all understand that you are making no comment as to whether you are
the most effective CSM in the history of EVE Online.
Whether you are feeling like you are accomplishing those things or not at this time. But yeah, Mick, were there any particular of note standout issues that you went in that you hoped to be able to talk about, or hope you can talk about, or however you would want to put it?
Yeah, I think everything that I've either wanted to address or would like to incorporate as part of my tenure has either already happened, which is awesome, or something that I can continue to work on. So, like I said, we've only been at this for since November? Was that what it was? So we've still got a lot of over half a year left, which I feel confident gives me plenty of time to be able to address the things I would like to before next election cycle.
Okay, I mean, this is I know that this is your first time as well, Drake, but obviously you've had involvement before. I know that you've been able to bring problems to CCP before you had the access of the CSM, and that you've been involved in the CSM process before. But Mick, this was your first time running as well, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have there been any kind of surprises? Pleasant. Let's only stick with pleasant ones. There might not be any negative ones. Have you had any kind of pleasant surprises?
I think a surprise should be that, despite public opinion, the nullsec CSMs are not actually as entrenched as is made clear on Reddit.
Oh yeah,
well, it depends which CSM you were on.
I'm
but
CSM 19 at this particular moment, but
good grief, you should have seen 15. But go on, yeah, Mick. Any pleasant surprises with your access to CCP or the other CSMs?
Yeah, everyone's been great to work with. Yeah, I'm very thankful that everyone, especially during the summit, was very respectful of everyone's opinion. Nobody was shouting over anybody or being rude or anything like that. Everyone had the time and opportunity to say what they needed to say. And even in situations where maybe we got a little off track or whatever, or long-winded, people were very polite about, hey, let's come back to that or whatever. Let's circle back, and then we would be able to get through everything. So that was really pleasant, because it's even in everyday work, you run into people that just kind of want to soapbox, and it's really frustrating when your time is so limited. It was nice to not have to worry about that.
I don't think there was any soapboxing at all during.
No, there wasn't. It was awesome. it was very, very unique. That was a very pleasant surprise.
Excellent. Well, it's been great getting this insight, guys, from all of you. And I certainly, Redline and myself have a very different set of gripes, but gripes nonetheless about EVE. But I know it hasn't been enough from CCP for a lot of the player base, but from what you guys have said about your experiences today, I certainly feel quite positive about the future of the game that I love playing. I mean, do you guys have any sort of final thoughts about any final thoughts for the rest of the players of the game? Any kind of hang in there messages? I mean, Drake, do you want to go first?
I would say the CSM is definitely trying to work on CCP being more communicative.
Mm.
It's always going to be an uphill battle, because they've had years of not being attacked by the player base, but having negative feedback all the time. So I feel they're very insular. So we'll continue working on that. As far as CCP's been going recently, I would say everyone can look up, because in the past few years, we've had a lot of changes that have addressed a lot of issues in the past. We've had like quite a lot of ship balance. We've had quite a lot of new ships that are also different, like systems that aren't just normal guns, things like that. Like we've had the deathless stuff, which is really cool. We've got new events out now, because one of the criticisms before was like, oh, it's just rehashing the same events over and over. Like they're doing more events now. We got that with the deathless stuff, with finding Zarzak, with the drifter stuff happening now. Probably shouldn't finish that thought, actually. That's under NDA. So
okay, wonderful.
But it is definitely looking up. If you give CCP the time of day, I think they would respect that. And I know, and then at the same time, if they fuck up and do a CCP Monkey Paw, which EVE is such a big game that they're bound to do it in some form, big or small, because there's always some after effect of a change that no one has thought about, like some super niche thing that no one's just happened to bring to the table. Don't bite their head off vitriolically, whatever the fucking word is. Don't be a dick about it. Bite their head off, but be constructive when you're doing it. And say like, look, I'm pissed off at this. This is why. So then they actually have data to come away with, and it's not just, in their view, blind hate. I think if the player base did that, then CCP might capitulate and start communicating more, and I really fucking hope they do.
Luke, we're gonna love the next 9 months of EVE, aren't we?
I mean, I'm not going to say anything because very uncommitted.
I'm sorry, Luke. Luke,
So-
how do you feel?
So obviously, I mean, I'm going to kind of reflect back through 3 terms at this point, right? Because I come away from the summit generally pretty positive. I think I have on 17. I think I did on 18. And you then go through development cycles, and then what comes out isn't what it is. What was kind of expected, let's say. Now, do I think that means that CCP are kind of ultimately trying to, do the things that piss off their player base? Of course they're not. Nobody wants to wake up to a whole load of 50 vitriolic messages on Reddit. Like nobody wakes up for work to do that. So kind of echoing what Drake was saying, really, which is, when they do these things and they mess up, call it out, explain why it's a problem, provide some level of data to kind of back it up. And I think generally they will listen. But you have to back it up and not just like go, you're rubbish, because they are kind of people too, right? And I think generally they're trying to do the best they can. It doesn't mean they get it right. But getting it right is, looking in this room, there's probably, there's 5 of us here, and there's probably at least 12 different opinions of what right looks like on any given subject.
And Mick, it's been a long time since we've seen multiple different sides in the wormhole community come together to back a single wormhole candidate. So I'm sure that they want to thank you for the efforts that you've been putting in on the CSM. Are there any sort of final thoughts that you've come to from attending your first summit?
I think for folks who are like looking, like, when are we gonna find out what we can actually look forward to? That's not kind of just, generic hintings at things. I would just go back to what I've always done, which is just look at like the press releases, the trailers, the even those little, like, I forget what they're called, like the little news blurbs.
There's the in the scope and the.
That's it. The scope.
Community beat.
Yeah.
You've got scope and community beat, haven't you?
Yeah, like I always used to pick through that stuff with like a fine tooth comb. Obviously, we can't talk about any of the things that may or may not get mentioned in future publications, etc. But
you're talking about the scroll at the bottom, which has like
the little scroll.
Yeah, that does hint at upcoming things quite a lot. So,
So
obviously,
like,
he's not going to give much detail, but
yeah. So like, if you want to like have something to kind of like look for, the canary in the coal mine, if you will, that's what I've always done in the past. I assume there's no reason to expect why they would suddenly change it now. Because CCP really likes building the hype, and like the hype train is fun. So yeah, just if you want something to look forward to, do that. And for anyone who's in the Wormhole UN that's watching right now, we'll have our debrief next week and go over the next topic of discussion. So set out some time.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, guys, remember, Drake, Luke, Mick, they are all available on Discord. I'm sure that they do sleep sometimes, but certainly from what I've heard, anybody who's ever spoken to them has always said that these three guys will get back to you. Whatever your concern is.
To any CSM as well, which is probably also a really good conduit for feedback on, like when I said, like, bite CCP's head off, but be constructive about it. If people got together and gave their thoughts and gave it to the CSM can immediately give it to the CCP's internal chat. And they are active on there. They're very active on there. Like this weekend alone, we've had like 3 separate, like long form discussions. And if you don't have a CSM that will champion your cause, and there will be, because it's a very varied CSM.
I mean, unless you're coming to a CSM saying, "Can you give me a single player version of Eve, please?" You know, there's a limit.
No, I can help on that. Really worked for me, and I underestimated how effective it was like the roundtable stuff I did. If you get a load of players together and be concise in your feedback and present to CCP and say, like, look, we've got this player group that has concerns about this area, please could someone come in and have a look at it? They will come in and look at it. It is an uphill battle, but if you get like a document together, kind of like a white paper, and to present to them as well, so they don't have to go and troll through all the messages, it is very likely that they will read it and pass it on.
Thank you. I mean, you know, I might also say that, you know, I certainly feel very positive about the future of Eve from what you told me here. You know, it's a gamble, but I think it's an easy gamble, an easy thing, easily worth gambling on. Redline, anything to take us out for the evening on?
Not today. I'm just ready to send the raid. We'll see everybody next week.
And you're looking forward to undocking sometime in the next few months when it gets good, right?
I'll probably unduck later, you know.
Good.
But anyways, we're gonna go raid Soupmaster71. He's playing EVE Online, the video game, and his name's Soupmaster. He seems like a fun guy. We're gonna go say hello. Let's see if we can make his day better. All right, this is the part where everybody waves. See you, gang.
See ya.
See you next week.
If you're not